All right, it's Miss Abby here, and today I'm going to read for you a book that I used to love whenever I was little. It's called Amelia Bedelia. She has a pretty cool rhyming name, so it's already got that going for it. The author of this book is Peggy Parish, which means she wrote the story. And the pictures are by Fritz Seibel, so he's the illustrator. Let's see what Amelia Bedelia does. Oh, Amelia Bedelia, your first day of work, and I can't be here. But I made a list for you. You do just what the list says, said Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers got into the car with Mr. Rogers, and they drove away. So here's Amelia Bedelia standing in front of this beautiful yellow house with white stairs going up to it. My, what nice folks. I'm going to like working here, said Amelia Bedelia. She looks happy. She's smiling. Amelia Bedelia went inside. Such a grand, big house. These must be rich folks, but I must get to work. Here I stand just looking, and me with a whole list of things to do, said Amelia Bedelia. She stood there a little bit longer. I think I'll make a surprise for them. I'll make a lemon meringue pie. I do make good pies. That sounds really good. I also like lemon meringue pies. So Amelia Bedelia went into the kitchen. She put a little of this and a pinch of that into the bowl, and she mixed and she rolled. So it looks like she's cracking an egg, and there's some lemons there next to the bowl. And she's using this thing right here, which some of you might not know what it is. It's a hand beater. So it has little beaters at the end, and you rotate the little wheel on the side, and it spins the beaters. And then this down here is called a sifter, and it kind of gets all the clumps out of the flour. And then she's using a rolling pin down here. Soon her pie was ready to go into the oven. There, said Amelia Bedelia. That's done. Now, let's see what this list says, Amelia Bedelia read. Change the towels in the green bathroom. Okay, easy enough. Amelia Bedelia found the green bathroom. Those towels are very nice. Why change them? She thought. Wonder what she thinks it means. Then Amelia Bedelia remembered what Mrs. Rogers had said. She must do just what the list told her. Well, all right, said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia took some scissors, and she snipped a little here and a little there, and she changed those towels. Do you think that's what Mrs. Rogers meant for her to do? Guess we'll see. There, said Amelia Bedelia. She looked at her list again. Dust the furniture. Did you ever hear of such a silly thing? At my house, we undust the furniture, but to each his own. Amelia Bedelia took one last look at the bathroom. She saw a big box with the words dusting powder on it. I wonder what she's going to do with that dusting powder. Well, look at that. A special powder to dust with, exclaimed Amelia Bedelia. So Amelia Bedelia dusted the furniture. That should be dusty enough. My, how nice it smells. I don't think that's what Mrs. Rogers meant. Draw the drapes when the sun comes in, read Amelia Bedelia. She looked up. The sun was coming in. Amelia Bedelia looked at the list again. Draw the drapes? That's what it says. I'm not much of a hand at drawing, but I'll try. So Amelia Bedelia sat right down and she drew the drapes. You see her drawing them on that piece of paper? I wonder if that's what Mrs. Rogers really meant. Amelia Bedelia marked off about the drapes. Now what? Put the lights out when you finish in the living room. Amelia Bedelia thought about it for a minute. She switched off the lights and then carefully unscrewed each bulb. I wonder where she's going to take those. And Amelia Bedelia put the lights out. You see where she put them? She hung them on the clothesline with the socks. So those things need to be aired out too, just like pillows and babies. Oh, I do have a lot to learn, she said. My pie! Exclaimed Amelia Bedelia. She hurried to the kitchen. See the smoke coming out of the oven? Just right, she said. She took the pie out of the oven and put it on the table to cool. Then she looked at the list. Measure 2 cups of rice. That's next, said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia found 2 cups and filled them up with the rice. And Amelia Bedelia measured that rice. Look, she's using a tape measure to measure the rice. I've never measured rice that way before. Amelia Bedelia laughed. These folks do want me to do funny things. Then she poured the rice back into the container. The meat market will deliver a steak and a chicken. Please trim the fat before you put the steak in the icebox or the refrigerator. And please dress the chicken. When the meat arrived, Amelia Bedelia opened the bag. She looked at the steak for a long time. Yes, she said, that will do nicely. Amelia Bedelia got some lace and bits of ribbon, and Amelia Bedelia trimmed that fat before she put the steak in the icebox. I wonder what she did with all of that ribbon. Now, I must dress the chicken. I wonder if she wants a he chicken or a she chicken, said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia went right to work. Soon the chicken was finished. She put clothes on that chicken. Amelia Bedelia heard the door open. The folks are back, she said, and she rushed to meet them. Amelia Bedelia, why are all the light bulbs outside? Asked Mr. Rogers. The list just said to put the lights out, said Amelia Bedelia. It didn't say to bring them back in. Oh, I do hope they don't get aired too long. Amelia Bedelia, the sun will fade the furniture. I asked you to draw the drapes, said Mrs. Rogers. I did, see, said Amelia Bedelia, and she held up her picture. So it sounds like Mrs. Rogers meant to close the drapes, not to draw them on a piece of paper. Then Mrs. Rogers saw the furniture. The furniture, she cried. Did I dust it well enough? Asked Amelia Bedelia. That's such nice dusting powder. Mr. Rogers went to wash his hands. I say, he called, these are very unusual towels. Mrs. Rogers dashed, she ran into the bathroom. Oh, my best towels, she said. Didn't I change them enough? Asked Amelia Bedelia. So both Mrs. Rogers and Mr. Rogers do not look very happy. Mrs. Rogers went to the kitchen. I'll cook dinner. Where is the rice I asked you to measure? I put it back into the container, but I remember it measured 4.5 inches, said Amelia Bedelia. Miss Rogers looks very confused. Was the meat delivered? Asked Mrs. Rogers. Yes, said Amelia Bedelia. I trimmed the fat just like you said. It does look nice. Mrs. Rogers rushed to the icebox and opened it. Lace? Ribbons? Oh dear, said Mrs. Rogers. Look at her face. Her eyebrows are kind of crazy, and her hand is by her mouth. She looks shocked and maybe even angry. The chicken? You dressed the chicken? Asked Mrs. Rogers. Yes, I found the nicest box to put him in, said Amelia Bedelia. Box? exclaimed Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers hurried over to the box. She lifted the lid. There lay the chicken, and he was just as dressed as he could be. Oh, she does not look happy at all. She's getting more and more angry. Mrs. Rogers was angry. Very, very angry. She opened her mouth. Mrs. Rogers meant to tell Amelia Bedelia that she was fired. But before she could get those words out, Mr. Rogers put something in her mouth. It was so good. Mrs. Rogers forgot about being angry. I wonder what it was. Can you guys guess what he put in her mouth? Lemon meringue pie, she exclaimed. I made it to surprise you, said Amelia Bedelia happily. So right then and there, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers decided that Amelia Bedelia must stay, and so she did. Mrs. Rogers learned to say, undust the furniture, unlight the lights, close the drapes, and things like that. Mr. Rogers didn't care if Amelia Bedelia trimmed all of his steaks with lace. All he cared about was having her there to make lemon meringue pie. And that's the end. So I really like this story because it shows you that words have different meanings. So draw the drapes can mean to actually draw them on a piece of paper or to close them. And I just think it's really funny how Amelia Bedelia interprets all of these things on the list. Bye.